Our neighbors from Tanzania, if we have wronged you in any way, forgive us.
President William Ruto's public apology to Tanzania is making headlines across East Africa. The diplomatic gesture comes after the controversial deportation of East African activists from Tanzania, a move that ignited outrage and accusations of abuse. But as the One Africa show reports, Kenyans themselves are deeply divided over the apology. At a national prayer breakfast in Nairobi, Kenya's President William Ruto stepped into the heart of an East African diplomatic storm. But the president's apology sparked a wave of debate online. While some praised his call for unity, others saw it as political posturing.
Personally, I appreciate and applaud our President William Ruto for apologizing to Tanzania for our meddling. We got into Tanzanian politics, which was not right. We've never seen them get into our politics or meddle our politics locally here. And it wasn't right for Kenyans to meddle into Tanzanian politics. And not alone, not even meddling into their politics. Whatever transpired after the issues that, after Kenyans were deported from Tanzania is what is not right. The social media attacks on the president and some of the members of parliament, personally I feel it wasn't okay, because I've never seen Tanzania get involved in our politics, and it's not okay for us to get into or to meddle into theirs. And thank you, Mr. President, and I applaud my president for taking that opportunity to apologize to our neighbors.
Political analyst Professor James Ngundi, however, says Ruto's words may be more about diplomacy optics than principle.
But my concern is not with the apology, because I think an apology anytime is not a bad thing. Anytime we can apologize for wrongdoing or even admission that we did something wrong, I think it's the mature thing to do. My concern, though, is that this may turn out to be an apology that really signals more of our politicians and political class circling the wagons and protecting themselves and their own. And I think that may very quickly backfire, especially with the young generation, the so-called Gen Zs. They may see through this and see this as an attempt to hoodwink them once again. I think it's important to remember that President Ruto is apologizing at a time when some of their key leaders, for example, the activist Mwangi, were abducted and later dumped on the Kenyan side of the Kenya-Tanzania border. And so it may be an attempt to hoodwink Gen Zs and others, but I think Gen Zs are likely to see through this. I also think a lot of people in the opposition are going to read this as an attempt by President Ruto to join hands with his counterpart in Tanzania, just as he has done with his counterpart in Uganda, to continue suppressing the opposition and to suppress dissent. So it may be a good thing to apologize, but I think there is a likelihood that by doing so, it could backfire and in fact bring the opposition in the three countries into some kind of unity, of understanding, of working together.
The diplomatic fallout stems from the detention and alleged torture of activists, including Kenyan Boniface Mwangi and Ugandan Agatha Atuhaire, who traveled to Tanzania to attend the trial of opposition leader Tundu Lissu. They claim they were held without communication and later dumped at the border. Tanzanian MPs accuse Kenyans of cyberbullying President Samia Suluhu and disrespecting their sovereignty. But not all voices in Tanzania were combative. Back in Kenya, younger citizens, especially Gen Z activists, weren't buying the apology. Some called for Ruto to focus on domestic issues first, including youth unemployment and police brutality. Whether a genuine olive branch or diplomatic calculation, President Ruto's apology has stirred up more questions than answers. For many Kenyans, the deeper conversation now is about activism, regional identity, and who really gets to speak on behalf of East Africa's people.
So whatever happens in Tanzania affects Kenya, and whatever happens in Kenya affects Tanzania and Tanzanians. So we are already heavily invested in what happens in Tanzania. That's number one. Number two, the reason that led to Kenyan activists to go to Tanzania or to try to get into Tanzania were not because of events that happened in Kenya. It's because of events that were going on in Tanzania. So in fact, I think it is misleading to insinuate that the problems in Tanzania are being exported into the country from Kenya, because that's not true. Tundu Lissu is facing treason charges. And that is why these activists were going to Tanzania to try and show support for democracy, to show support for fair administration of justice. And that is something that I think should happen across the borders, because if there is a miscarriage of justice in Tanzania, then it's going to impact Kenya and vice versa.
We'll continue to follow developments in this unfolding East African diplomatic drama right here on the One Africa Show. Thank you for joining me today on One Africa Show. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video. And stay tuned for more updates from us.